Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the May 28th, 2014 meeting of the Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen and Sewer Commissioners. We began the meeting shortly after 6 o'clock and went immediately into executive session where we discussed contract and litigation matters where a public discussion of those things would have been detrimental to the interests of the town. So we're reconvening back in open session here. May I have another roll call?
Present is Selectman Tropiano, Selectman Titlebaum, Selectman Slavin,
Thank
Town
you.
Council Richard Bowen, and Town Administrator Derek Sullivan.
Yes, Selectman Whiteside and Selectman Holmes have pre-planned absences, so no reason for alarm. They're okay, but they're not here tonight. Next item on the agenda, please.
Announcements, Patrick?
I have none tonight.
Nothing tonight.
I just have one. It's going to be a yard sale, June 22nd, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Rain days, June 23rd. Says no early birds, please. Main Street, Wareham, near the CVS. It's right next door to the old fish market. Table spaces are $20. Call to reserve a space. Rudy at 295-2374. Winner at 295-8173. Want to donate items? Drop donations at the former Franconi Oil Building, Main Street, Wareham, near CVS, June 8th or June 15th from 9 to noon. All proceeds support the summer celebration of 2014. I will leave a copy up in the office. Anyone wants to contact Town Hall, Selectman's office, they'll be able to give information as well. Thank you.
Next item, please.
Citizens' participation.
Are there no citizens tonight with any matters for the town? I guess not. Next item, please.
Consent agenda. We have one legal bill.
I got it. You want it here?
For some reason it's not in the folders. I got one here. I'm sorry, Patrick. I got an extra one. We have before us a bill from the Law Office of Richard Bowen for services of $120,113 to $220,13. Standard fee of $15,000.
Okay. Could we have a motion on that, please?
Motion to accept the bill from Law Office of Richard Bowen,
Second.
28 Stockbridge Road, Situate, Mass. Town Council.
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Selectman Slavin and seconded by Selectman Tropiano. Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 3-0-0. Next item, please.
Approval of executive session minutes of May 14th, 2013. Make a motion to accept the minutes and hold.
Second.
Okay. Anything on the question? Motion made by Selectman Slavin and seconded by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 3-0-0.
Motion to accept the regular minutes of session May 14th, 2013.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin and seconded by Selectman Tropiano. Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 3-0-0.
Next, Mr. Chairman, we have reappointment to Marine Resources Commission.
Okay.
First one I have is for Richard Wheeler. Mr. Wheeler is not here. This is for an associate position that is 1 year, which will expire June 30th, 2014. Mr. Wheeler is an existing member of the Marine Resources Commission. I think he's on his second or third year at this point. I would make a motion that we accept Mr. Wheeler as an associate member for Marine Resources.
Second.
Term to expire no later than June 30th, 2014.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Selectman Slavin and seconded by Selectman Tropiano. Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 3-0-0. Reappointment.
We have a Donald H. Jepson. Not here. Make a motion to accept Donald H. Jepson, previous member on the Marine Resources Commission, his term to expire June 30th, 2016.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Selectman Slavin and seconded by Selectman Tropiano. Anything on the question?
Hold on one second. It shows, you're talking about Frank and Donald Jepson here. It shows on mine, it says not seeking reappointment, in quotes next to it.
No, that's the Linwood Gay I've got on mine.
Huh?
Mine's crossed out.
Is it? It says right here on mine, it says not seeking reappointment.
Yeah, mine's over here. It shows it here.
Okay, you sure? Okay. All right. All right. No problem.
Are we all set? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 3-0-0.
Just a note out to the public, this particular Marine Resources Commission normally has 5 members. One member, Linwood, has not sought reappointment. Another member has retired. He's probably been on that particular board at least 20 years. So the town is looking for members to make a quorum for that particular committee. We appreciate anybody who would be considering that commission.
Thank you. And next up, please.
Commission on Disability. Actually, we have 2. It says Conservation and Disability.
Well, we'll do the disability first.
Okay. Actually, same person for both, so we'll do.
Well, you got to do separate motions.
Yep. Make a motion to appoint Joseph Mulkern to the Commission on Disability, term to expire no later than June 30th, 2016. This is a reappointment.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin and seconded by Selectman Tropiano. Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 3-0-0. Congratulations, Mr. Mulkern. Typically, this isn't a public hearing matter, Joe. So I don't know what you would have to say this, Jermaine. We've reappointed you, so you've gotten the result you wanted. Yep.
I have on the Conservation Commission as associate position, which is a 1-year position, Joseph Mulkern, for a term to expire no later than June 30th, 2014. This again is a reappointment as an associate member.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Selectman Slavin and seconded by Selectman Tropiano. Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 3-0-0. And again, congratulations, Joe. You hit a double tonight.
We have no license and permits. Next is sewer business. Mr. Campina.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Selectman Slavin, Selectman Tropiano, and Town Administrator Sullivan. Good evening to you all. We have a couple of abatements, and I guess we'll take them in order as I have them in front of me. Hopefully that's how you have them.
Robert Crane and John A. LeBlanc.
I have, yes, Robert Crane, 3109 Cranberry Highway, account number 736649.
Yep.
And the abatement, there's the supporting documents. The water had been shut off November of 2011, and according to our policy, after 1 year from that date, which would be November 2012, they're able to apply for abatement, which they have. So we're abating them. It's 2 EDUs. We're abating them $298, and we're going to put the count on hold until the water's back on and the property becomes habitable. So I'm asking that we just allow us to put on hold and to abate the amount of money of $298 to the.
So
to
moved.
that account. Thank you.
Second. That's
Okay. Motion by Selectman Tropiano and seconded by Selectman Slavin. Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 3-0-0 on that one.
And the second is, this was a mistake, as I understand it. 3 Ash Street, there was 2 accounts created. What we do is when we go out and do an inspection on the property after they're installed, that information goes to the assistant, department assistant. And a lot of times what happens is at that time of the inspection, the septic systems aren't crushed. So we have to go do another inspection. And of course, in this instant, they return another set of documents for that particular piece of property, thereby created two accounts. So we're going to shut one down, do an abatement, and then go from there.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion to abate by Selectman Tropiano, seconded by Selectman Slavin. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, approved 3-0-0.
That's all I have this evening for you. Anything you have for me, I'll be more than happy to do my best to answer.
Actually, item A, funding source for contract 2. We've been talking about looking at the retained earnings just to get some idea of what's in, numbers, et cetera. I just want people to understand this is not the only place we're looking how to pay our $18,000 versus actual expense on contract 2. This is just one area to see what may or may not be available. Hopefully, when we have everybody back in place around the 11th of June, we'll start to have discussions about how we take care of this matter. But I just want the public to know it's not just strictly coming out of retained earnings, or that's the only place we're looking. Thank you.
Selectman Tropiano, did you have anything for
No, I'm all set. Well, thank you.
Scampino? I think we're all set.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Have a nice night, guys.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Discussion on guidance to the town administrator for the next year. This is just an ongoing item on the agenda.
I think we've guided him as much as we can at this point until after town meeting.
Okay, well, next up then, unless you have something.
No, not tonight. We'll wait
Okay.
till everybody's here.
Yep.
Discussion with the Bike Path Committee. Would people like to come
yes.
up, please?
Good evening.
We have the Bike Path Committee on the agenda. During a transportation meeting that I went to for the region, that's part of SERPED, for one of their regional transportation groups. They list a lot of the DOT projects, bike paths, et cetera. And I was kind of disturbed that looking at the Wareham Bike Path, they have it listed as status inactive, which means nothing's been happening with them on their end there. So at that point there, I wanted the Bike Path Committee to come before us to see what we can do to help you, because obviously we don't want to see the bike path leave as an inactive status, which means they don't have any plans right now in place for us. So, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and I'm glad you invited us back, because we're at that situation where we've been almost for the 8 years we've been doing this. And not to throw anybody under the bus at any point in time over these 8 years, but we've appeared before the Board of Selectmen on multiple times asking for a liaison who is a town authority in the bike path. Understand the Bike Path Committee is an exploratory committee. We go out and find out facts about bike paths and so forth, and then we give that information to our administration and to the authority to act on it being accomplished. We've had several liaisons who've sat on the board. We've been on the board, come to the board multiple times, and we've had everything from our town administrator being our liaison to that administrator appointing his assistant to be the liaison to the planning commissioner being the liaison without any forward motion. I guess a good example of that was the last time we were here. We had to come to you folks as the Board of Selectmen and ask you to send a letter to our municipal maintenance manager to get some lines painted on Onset Avenue, because we asked him to do that since it was all brand new. He agreed to do it, but he would not do it without your permission. So if you're asking what we need, again, without throwing anybody under the bus or any of those other kinds of things, what we need is somebody who attends the District 5 meetings and SERPED meetings, who is furthering the process. We've submitted the project needs forms, the project initiation forms, all of that has been submitted, but we're at a no status because nobody from the town who has authority to speak for the town is speaking for us at those meetings.
Well, that has changed, because when the board assigned everybody with this new board here, I actually was assigned to that committee and attended the first meeting that I guess anybody from Wareham has attended in a long time. That's why I asked you to come before us, because I wanted you to understand what I had run into. So that will not happen in the future. This particular committee, the Bike Path Committee, was formed by the Board of Selectmen, so obviously you do report back to us. And, so if you have any issues at all, you can come before us, actually put on the agenda, et cetera. We'll take care of it.
Yeah, I mean, we've been back on several different occasions, different boards, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to take one board and throw it all under one title or whatever, but we've been back several times, and, you know, we've had some of these discussions, and we've had board members who are our liaison come to our committee meetings, and we explain what we are, again, and I guess for us, it's pretty clear. We found the facts, we went out and got a feasibility study accomplished, and gave that to the board for that action to take place. So that's our big thing.
All right, we can take care of that issue, but what I'd like to see, if it's at all possible, get back to us, maybe schedule in 2 or 3 weeks, come back with a list of objectives you need, where you're gonna need some help from the town and from the Board of Selectmen, you know, so we can actually get things started, because it'd be good to have an idea of where your project is, where you're at a roadblock, where you need assistance. What I'm basically asking is, where do you need assistance from the town
Right.
to go ahead and move the project forward?
Yeah.
Because right now, Mass DOT and I think it's JTEP, they're sitting at a standstill waiting for you. So we're waiting for you.
If I might just add, we do have a project need form in our CETA group there, and all we need to do is fill it out and have Mr. Pina send it in, or whatever the next move is. So it's all set up and ready to go as far as Merchant Ways is concerned.
Okay.
So we need to further that on.
Yeah, and again, I thought when we came the last time, talking about striping Onset Avenue was a clear start process of what we'd like to see happen. And it doesn't sound like much, but I'll tell you, getting something on the ground after 8 years is a lot bigger than it sounds like, just having some paint put on the side of the road. We have not heard back from the municipal maintenance manager yet as to when that might happen. Now, I know he's still paving part of the road, but it would be nice, in all honesty, to hear back from him as to when he anticipates doing it. We're now into the high season of us, you know, past Memorial Day. It would be ideal to have it before the summer tours really come down, to have this striping done so that people can see that the town of Wareham is in process of what we've been talking about for years.
Okay, I'm going to ask,
Just one more question, Peter.
okay, but I'm just
Sorry.
going to ask Mr. Sullivan to address that point, and then,
That's one question then. But,
yeah, good.
has there been a decision made whether you're going to have a bike path on the back on Merchants Way or on Main Street?
It's really going to be coming down Main Street and going on to Merchants Way, unless there's ever, if there's a possibility of a connection to the nail factory. Then you would come down Merchants Way, past Oak Street down onto Merchants Way from behind. The reason why we looked at that long ago with a feasibility study, but what we looked at, of course, was trying to stay away from any private land takings and so forth. And so what they're looking at right now is taking that turn off of Main Street as you come down just before the fire station where it is now. That would take you on to Merchants Way on the back end and so forth. That was our original plan, to come in that way.
You're talking about Merchants Way at the one-way portion?
Yes, starting there and heading in towards the
Towards-
bridge, the Narrows Bridge, heading in that
You'd
way.
be heading against the traffic.
Well, that was our original plan. Now, with what Mr. Pina has been talking about, is having, again, one-way Main Street, one-way Merchants Way, and you'd have a single-lane bike path going towards the bridge and towards the park, and then a single lane coming the
On the
way.
other side on the one-way,
Right.
going with the traffic, if
Right.
that were the case?
If that were the case.
Okay.
They've also had some sketching done where the path itself basically would stop at the one-way and then come up this way, and then it would be, on the Merchants Way side would be a two-lane path towards the railroad tracks between the parking, let's say, and Merchants Way. Again, a pathway is not just for bikes. I hope people understand that. We're the Bike Path Committee because that's how we originally were formed. But we've often called the pathway the Wareham Community Pathway because it's about walkers and joggers and rollerbladers and things like this. So having something that's more separate from cars wherever possible would be beneficial as well.
Yes.
Also, I'd just like to mention that it's also on the boards or on the design plan that we might put the bike path on the other side of the railroad tracks going all the way to Tremont Nail. Part of it would have to be a boardwalk because there's obviously water, but that's a third possibility.
Well, Mr. Sullivan, could you speak to the availability
Absolutely.
of municipal maintenance?
Yeah, I've been speaking with Mr. Gifford on it. One of the things, and I've experienced it myself, is people want deadlines, and I'm going to tell you, it's one of the things I preach is not to give one just to give one, and I think that's what would have been given to you. So he's working on it. This isn't sending our employees out and painting it. We don't have the manpower to do that. We sent out one bid request, and that came back for a bonded polymer, and each one of those little bicycle designs was $400. No way, we can't afford that. So we've put it out again for painting on there. As soon as we've got the bids, we've reviewed them and awarded it, we'd probably be looking to, depending on what the contractor's time frame is, I'd say a couple weeks to a month thereafter. Not clarity I'm giving you, I'm just trying to explain the process and why you're not getting a definitive answer on there.
I think that's better than hearing zero.
Okay.
In all honesty, hearing that there's a process involved and someone's following through with the process is far better than getting no reply whatsoever from, you know what I mean? So, thank you. I think we can appreciate that, and when we go back to our committee meeting, we can say, this is what the process is and where we are with it. And when people ask us that question, because we're always in the limelight with people all the time asking, where are you with the bike path? Well, it'd be nice to say, we're in the process of doing it, and the process has gone out for bids and things like that. That's bits of information that is hugely important, not only to the committee, but as a committee gets involved with the Friends group, and different situations where we're part of the Swan Festival or all these other things, people all the time come up to and ask us that question. It'd be nice to have some of those answers. So that's a marvelous thing, believe it or not.
Well, I've accomplished one thing here
That's
tonight.
right,
That's
see?
good. Thank you.
Just to go back, I'm a little confused. You may have to get back to us and dial in where exactly the bike route is going to be, because we can't obviously put down a set of lines one place and then change it to another one. Right. And because of the way the bump outs are, et cetera, and the way the parking is right now, I'm not sure you can put a very wide line for a bike path on Merchant's Way the way it is right now either.
Right, I understand there's gotta be some redesign on both sides of that thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, the current trend in terms of bike lanes and so forth in towns and cities and so forth is to put it on just the outside edge of a parking space, you know, wide enough and so forth. If you're leading one way coming into town, that would be, I guess, if you're heading into town, that would be on the right-hand side. You'd do it that way. And when you get up to the bridge, you would turn around and be on the opposite side of Merchant's Way. You know, again, that part of it was not part of our original feasibility study. This was all been added since downtown has been redesigned and so forth. And our original feasibility study was that we were coming down into town through the active rail line, and now that's back on the drawing board because Mass DOT, the Railroad Division, has decided to welcome some of those things, and it's been always part of their design, but they haven't been very supportive in that until just recently. And you know, we're in a good position with the town now that we're offering the Cape Codder and so forth to ask for some mitigation about this, to allow us to use parts of their property segregated from the tracks, of course, by fencing and whatever, but use their part of their property so that we don't have to worry about some of these issues surrounding how downtown is being designed or redesigned or whatever, and stay off the roads as much as possible. So most towns who have mitigated with MassDOT Railroad have gotten very good responses from them in terms of mitigation, since they are putting more stress and strain on communities by bringing train services down through. So
Selectman Tropiano? do you have any-
I'm all set, thanks.
No, just if you get back to us, give us an idea, and
we
we'll get
will.
you scheduled in.
We'll actually talk to, where we see some of our big roadblocks and so forth, and we'll come back and let you know what those are.
Yeah, if you could also confer with Mr. Pena, and then also with the town administrator as far as municipal maintenance, to make sure that we have something that makes sense to do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next, please.
Discussion with Mac Finney on the Wareham Celebration 2014.
Good evening.
How you doing?
Good, thanks. You?
I'm representing the Summer Celebration 2014 organization. As I think a lot of people know now, during the summer we're going to celebrate the 275th incorporation of the town and the 200th anniversary of the British invasion of Wareham. What I'm asking for tonight is kind of specifically one of the events, which is a weekend-long event, June 13th through the 15th, 2014. And we hope that it's going to involve a military encampment, a Flag Day parade, and a reenactment of the British invasion. And what we're really asking for right now is permission from the town to use town property for these events so that we can go forward with more permanent plans. None of this is chiseled in stone at the moment, but we do have some pretty solid ideas as to what we want to do. So while I'm doing this, do you have any questions or comments, please? This is good. Looks like Mac and this computer don't want to talk to each other. I don't know if anybody knows the secret to it, but anyhow, I'll try to do the best I can. This is the town green, which is shown right in this area here. And for the encampment, which is really going to start on the 13th and be on the 14th and the 15th, we're asking to use the town green for military maneuvers, displays, different types of things that would be associated with the idea of the British invasion of Wareham. Along with that, as it says in the third point here, Flag Day would be June 14th, and we're planning on a parade to go from the Bessie's Park and end here at the Green. So those are two uses we want for this. The other use we want is that we are in the process of forming up the militia, because if the British are going to invade, we've got to have a militia in the town to repulse the invasion. Right now, our militia is probably lacking in training, and so we're asking that from basically now on until then, that we have permission to use the town green for our training. One of the reasons we would like to do it there is that if we do it there and we publicize it and maybe put up a sign when we're doing it, we might be able to stir up more and more interest in the celebration for the summer of 2014.
Are you looking to win the battle this time around?
Unfortunately, we can't change history.
We lose.
But we do have some interest. I'll get to that in a few minutes. We do have some interesting ideas on that. It is possible, and I'm not sure how this would work out, that when the parade ends here and we have the encampment going on, that we might want some food vendors. And we were wondering if it's possible to use this parking lot for food vendors, to separate it from our military encampment, because our military encampment is going to be kind of a period type thing.
Which
And
parking
food
lot?
vendors wouldn't. That's next to WCTV.
Yeah.
Might have to work that out. But
We'd have to work
we
it
thought
out
that might be a good place
with
to do it,
WCTV.
Yeah.
for that type of thing.
Yeah,
We'd have
they
to
lease,
talk with people and stuff.
WCTV leases the property, so we'd have to discuss that.
Okay, let's hope this works better than it did there. Oh, now it's gonna come up this way.
I was just thinking, another possibility might be the Congregational Church.
Yes, we thought of that too. This is not the way it's supposed to go.
Okay.
That's all right.
And also the Historical Society.
Yeah, that gives you an idea of what's
Parking area.
yeah, we're probably, as we do this, we're hoping that's going to bring attention to this whole area. And we've got the meeting house here, we've got the school, the church, and over here, of course, the Faring Tavern. And we're hoping that by having this celebration here on that weekend, we're going to encourage the use of these properties for other related things. And maybe we can encourage some of the fixing up of the buildings and so forth, give them some incentives to go ahead with that, which I think would be good for the town overall. Okay. Any other questions about that, Pat? Okay. And, okay, the encampment, we would like to use Tremont Nail property. This area up here is highland. It's not wetland at all. And there's a few trees placed in there, but it's fairly open. And we would like to set up a military encampment there, which would include the American forces. We have not only our own militia, but we have a commitment from the Fairhaven Village militia to help and participate. We have got to find some English who want to come back and invade Wareham again, but we would put them here. We're hoping that'll happen. We've got to work that one out. There are a lot of British reenactment groups, and we can probably come up with someone who will do that. In these encampments, they'll set up tents. They will demonstrate cooking and other things that might have happened during that period of time. There may be people who have some crafts that they like to demonstrate. I know that Fairhaven Militia does do this quite often, and they've been more than happy to help us out. And any of the drilling and stuff like that that comes about because of this would spill over onto the town green. At the same time, in some of these areas here, there's a lawn here, there's a lawn here, there's area over here, and even in here, if we had enough, we would like to have other types of craft demonstrations going on. I've lined up a blacksmith already who's committed himself to doing this. We have a group that sings the period songs and in costume and stuff like that, who's said they want to do it. They're from Wareham. We have stuff like timber framing demonstrations and things like that. I've initially think that we're going to have probably a wooden boat building demonstration going on. I'm looking for people who can do maybe weaving, spinning, pottery, anything that's somewhat of the period that we can demonstrate there. Now, at the same time, one of the thoughts I had was to, at Tremont Nail, to have tours of Tremont Nail. Tremont Nail has been closed up for so long that a lot of people have no idea what's going on there and so forth. But, and I'll go to the next slide to show you this. What would have to happen in order to do this is we'd have to actually clean up the inside of the factory. There's been water running through there because the drainage that's associated with it has been clogged up. And I've talked with municipal maintenance, and you know, they used to try to clean it up because they don't have the manpower and the time. They haven't. And as a result, water has been flowing through the factory. But they're more than happy to have some volunteers to go in there and not only clean up the drainage, but the trash that's around there, invasive species, things like that, to spruce it up so it looks like something. Inside the factory, now the tour itself would start here, and there's a door right here that's at ground level. It goes into the blacksmith shop. This is all accessible by people with disabilities. And then there's a ramp that leads down to the main factory, and this is all one level floor over here, through the machine shop and back out through here. So it would be completely accessible by anybody. Inside the building, there are some lighting issues. A lot of it's basically light bulbs that need to be replaced, haven't been replaced, and so forth. But I've already had Bob and Jeff Nemi, and their names are written in great big letters all over all of the electrical stuff down there. So they're the ones who were involved with it initially. They've gone down there and have given us advice and so forth and so on, and I think they want to continue to help us with this part of it. They were very enthusiastic about it. We would have to restore the blacksmith shop, which shouldn't be too bad of a job. I'm a blacksmith, and I have other blacksmith friends who are very much interested in thinking that maybe we could have an operating blacksmith shop at Tremont Nail. It's not an impossible job. I belong to the New England Blacksmith Association. They often donate equipment and stuff like that. I think we could have an operating blacksmith shop in there by the summer of 2014. Nail making machinery. There are probably at least 6 machines down there. And Gary Franklin, who's a 5th generation nailer, his family for 5 generations have worked for Tremont Nail. He still to this day works for Tremont Nail making nails on a daily basis. We've gone down there, we've taken a look at the machinery. He is quite sure that at least some of the machinery can be made to work again. We have contacted Acorn, who now Tremont Nail is a subsidiary of, if you will, actually it's become the biggest part of the company. They are willing to help us out by supplying knowledge, technical information, and possibly some materials and so forth. Makepeace has already donated to us a motor that would run one of the machines. We would not reactivate all the overhead belting and stuff like that. It's probably too risky a thing to do like that. But at Tremont Nail today, when they make nails, each machine has its own motor. So that's something to be done. And Makepeace had some motors laying around, and they gave us one, which I thought was very nice. And we can make souvenir nails and give them away with a little tag that says something on it. I remember the rings that were made of horseshoe nails. We can make rings out of Tremont nails. And I wouldn't even think too much about selling them. I used to do this and give them away. Their kids love it. But we would take some of the other stuff that's down there and put it on display, creating a walkthrough that would be safe and so that people couldn't run around the side. You'd probably put some kind of fencing up that would keep people on the track, stuff like that. With interpretive signage about the iron industry in general, not just Tremont Nail. Many people don't realize that Wareham was one of the biggest towns. It had a great amount of iron industry in it. It's an important part of our history, which has kind of been lost a bit, and we'd like to revive interest in that. So we'd like to have some interpretive signage. And fortunately, we have another volunteer on this one. The Boston Architectural College with Johanna Rowley. Her students will do this for ZIP, and it will be museum quality stuff.
She was just in here last week
Yes,
and gave a lengthy presentation on what they've been doing for the past, I want to say, 6 months at the factory, so it was very fascinating.
So, if we can have museum quality stuff, not just a poster with magic marker on it type of thing. We've got lots of photographs we can blow up, stuff like that, and we can easily make a very informative educational program. Now, the machine shop down here, if anybody's been in there, that machine shop looks like the day they quit, they walked out and left it. All the machinery is in there, it's all set up and stuff like that. Again, that could be a walkthrough with interpretive signage and so forth. And then the machine shop's right down here, they would exit out through here. We might have to ask the fire department to move their ladder truck for a day or so, 2 or something like that. I think it's a great opportunity to bring some attention to the nail factory. It sits there and people go by and think it's an interesting building, but they have no idea what the real history of it is. And I think it might draw some attention to it so that as we look at alternative uses and so forth, that people have seen it, been there, understand the history, and so forth and so on. As I say, nothing's chiseled in stone, and there's a lot of things we're going to have to overcome here, but I think it can be done, and I would like to proceed with that if we could. Any questions before we go on?
Bless you. Bless you again.
Was that a question?
Or a comment.
Okay, now, the reenactment. This is Bessie Park. These are the two docks here. This is the fishing docks, I call them, out here. The road and so forth. Okay, I think you have an idea where it is. Okay, we can set up a narrator here because we're going to tell a story. We're going to have to find a storyteller who can do a real good job of doing it. And we thought we'd set him up there, and the people who are going to be watching would be more or less throughout this whole area here. Maybe even along the edge of the bridge. I'm not sure how we'd do it, but I think there's plenty of room there. I've been down there a couple of times looking at it, and there seems to be plenty of room down there. Got all this room here and so forth. And I'm going to give you a brief idea of what the story is, but I'm not giving it all away because we still haven't, as a committee, decided on exactly what we want to do, but this is another piece of interesting history. The Nimrod, a British sloop, 18-gun British sloop, shows up, well, maybe not in the river, but if you're going to do this so people can see it, you've got to put it down here in the river, but it was probably further out in the bay. And I've got some people I know who have sloops who have done this type of thing before that would probably bring their ship in here and anchor it and throw up a British flag. Then the British rowed ashore. That's why the property over there is called British Landing. And they will row ashore here. And I think landing will be a little different because there's docks there and so forth, but that's where they would land. I'm hoping to get 2 boats they can use for this. We already have one pretty much promised from Mass Maritime. Maybe they can come up with 2, but they would be, we would load the British troops in there and have them probably be behind the sloop and then come out around it and come in and land. We'll call the militia to arms, okay? They'll be stationed downtown somewhere, and they'll march up and make a show of coming down here to protect the town from the British. Probably in that area. I wouldn't have them go any further in that area, and I'll show you why. Now, I can't give this too much away, but there are 2 stories as to what happened. The report that the British officers gave in England as to what happened here is very different than what we, who were here at Wareham at that time, said happened. So there's 2 stories, and I think we can work them both in and get some education going on here and also entertain. But according to the British, they were fired upon by the Wareham militia from both sides of the river. And I'm looking at maybe we can set them up here and maybe over here and maybe one of these boats out here, and we could demonstrate that. People come to see these things. They don't want to hear the story that Wareham never fired a shot, although we would tell them that story too. Hostages taken. Had to find some prominent people in town that the British can take hostages, because that's what had happened at that time.
Guess we're that's us.
When they took the hostages so that they wouldn't have any resistance. And so what happened was the militia stashed their arms underneath a porch on one of the houses in town. And the house I've chosen is the Kendrick Museum here, because it's right there. But that would be a good place to stash our arms. And that belongs to the Historic Society, so I don't think it's any problem. The British went down to the cotton factory, which is where Tremont Nail is now. They launched a Cosgrave rocket, which is the same rocket from the rockets Bright Glare, into the cotton factory and set it on fire. And then they burned a bunch of ships. Now, Wareham was quite deeply involved in shipbuilding at the time. It was one of the reasons why the British were came into here. So we would have to somehow or other simulate the burning of some ships, and in this area here, on this end of Bessie's Park. And that's pretty much the story. Well, actually, the British then take the hostages away, or somewhere in there they take the hostages away. What they did is took the hostages away, let them go at some remote piece of property, and then they made their way back to town. And after that, the town was very upset about everything going on, and the records say that the town became a fortified town after that. But we want to tell this story, and we would like to tell it in such a way that it's meaningful and that it can be entertaining at the same time that it's fairly factual. Again, we haven't nailed this down. This is a general idea. It may work out a little bit differently, but we need to have permission to use Bessie's Park to continue with this process and so forth. So that's what we're asking there. Any question before we go on? Okay. And this is my advertisement. So we are putting together a militia. It would be nice to have a fife and drum group with them. And we've got a pretty good basis of volunteers right now. We have 7 or 8 who are pretty much committed themselves. We have a few others have shown interest. This includes both women and men. The men mostly would be militia. The women would be the, I hate to say camp followers, but it could be because there were wives and stuff like that, and children would come along, what have you. Most all the militia groups do this type of thing. But we're also looking for volunteers who would like to help us out. We have a kind of a small informal group which we kind of call the Friends of Wareham History, who have volunteered to help with the cleaning up of the Tremont Nail Factory property and the factory itself, and to get things prepared. And the more volunteers, the merrier. So if anybody's interested in getting involved, and there's lots of other things that have to do with this summer celebration, you can call me and I can take your name and address, whatever, and see if we can go forward with this whole process. So we're looking for your help in giving us permission to go ahead and start making more permanent plans.
Well,
I'm good. I think it's a terrific presentation.
I'm already heavily invested in this whole project, unfortunately. I have my gun and bayonet already on order. But what I would suggest, Mac, is if you can, get a list of the dates, the locations, and see Susan Green up in the town administrator's office.
I didn't want to do that until I had permission.
Well,
Yeah, so we'll go ahead
yeah,
and do that.
the board's certainly going to support this. It's
Yeah.
important
Give
on
it
many
a-
different levels. You'll also need to talk with, through the town administrator, with town council, to figure out the usage, to figure out the access, rights, responsibilities, waivers, disclaimers, et
MOUs.
cetera, all that sort of
I
stuff.
understand all
But
that. So we can work that out.
No, thank you for what's already a significant amount of work that's gone into
Well,
this.
It's a big committee. I'm just representing one part of it right
Yeah.
now. So there's a lot of work
No,
being done.
we appreciate it. We,
It should be a fun time.
will be.
So.
You didn't mention the stockades.
Huh?
You didn't mention the stockades.
The stocks? Part of Wareham.
That's a
Yeah,
fundraiser.
part of Waham's history says that at the Thering Tavern, which was pretty much the seat of government back then, they had pillory and a whipping post. So I thought that if we built a pillory and we put people in it, that somebody might pay to get them out. Or maybe you'll pay to put them in. I don't know which, one way or the other, or could and it could be a fundraiser. That's something we're working on too.
you left out to pay to whip them.
No, I did a whipping post. I think we're going to bypass that one. No. Unless you have somebody in mind.
Let's not go there.
Okay?
Okay.
Good.
Keep us up to date, and as things move along, please come back and just let us know what you need.
Okay. Let's see if I can figure this out now.
Just file an exit probably, Mac. You can close it and then exit.
Usually with mine, I have to eject that properly before. Is there a thumb drive that you have?
Yeah.
Mac is so much easier.
Okay. Mr. Sullivan's also our AV consultant, so.
It's on the job specs.
Why don't we move along with the next agenda item here while they disconnect?
Next agenda item is the special election warrant for the Senator and Congress. I'll read it. Commonwealth of Massachusetts, William Francis Galvin, Secretary of the Commonwealth, Plymouth. To either of the constables of the town of Wareham, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth, you are hereby required to notify and warn the inhabitants of said town of Wareham who are qualified to vote in the special state election to vote at Precinct 1, Wareham Town Hall, 54 Marion Road. Precinct 2, Ethel E. Hammond School, Highland Ave. Precinct 3, Minot Forest School, 63 Minot Ave. Precinct 4, Deacon School, 760 Main Street. Precinct 5, Deacon School, 760 Main Street. And Precinct 6, Lodge of the Elks, 2859 Cranberry Highway. On Tuesday, the 25th of June, 2013, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. for the following purpose: to cast their votes in a special state election for the candidates for the following office: Senator in Congress for the Commonwealth. Hereof fail not to make in return of this warrant with your doings thereon at a time and place of said voting. Given under our hands the 28th of May, 2013. And that needs to be signed by the three of us.
Okay, so that's your motion?
Second.
Okay, motion by Selectman Slavin, second by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor to execute the warrant? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 300. It shall be done.
Next item is focus groups. I think this came up last week. We went ahead under the town administrator's request for me to go back and start to work on the focus groups. I contacted Fred Clark, the vice president of Bridgewater State University, and we had two programs going on. One was the focus groups that he would be the facilitator for. At the same time, we also had a program for interns, usually graduate student interns, for a special program that Bridgewater State University was going to start. So Wareham has been kind of selected as the first step along the way, and I've spent most of my time this past week with the town administrator's help and with the department's help in writing up the request for the graduate students in the water pollution control facility, and also for Matt Underhill in the GIS program with the assessor's office. Hopefully we'll see something coming over the next 3 to 4 months, depending how the students are available. Basically, Bridgewater State University is actually funding this program as well. So this is not going to be anything which has any real expense to Wareham. And at a graduate level, student level, they should be able to work on their own once they're given instructions. Bridgewater State University, just for reference, has one of the leading GIS sections in their university, and they've just spent approximately $100 million in new science and mathematics building there, so they're really pushing those areas as well. So hopefully I'll have something on the focus groups in the next 2 weeks or so, get that started. Thank you.
Okay, next item, please.
Discussion of stabilization account funding policy and possible vote.
Okay,
The Board
this
of
is-
Selectmen does have a policy that sits there, talking about stabilization, also capital planning, but Town Administrator, do you want to do this now or doing your report? Okay. Any town business not reasonably anticipated 48 hours prior to this meeting?
Selectman Tropiano, do you have anything?
I have nothing.
No.
Selectman Slavin? Okay, let's proceed to
Town
your
Administrator's
report.
No, we have a possible vote written on there, but what I would ask is, especially since we're down 2 members, is that we use this as a time to work on this. This is basically the germ of an idea, if you will, and I would like to just read this off. It starts off, the town of Wareham's expenditures continue to outpace its revenues. As such, it is no longer viable to fund the stabilization fund through the operating budget. This policy proposes that the town use free cash as a funding source for the stabilization fund. It then gives a definition of free cash. I can read it off if we want.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead?
All right. Free cash. Remaining unrestricted funds from operations of the previous fiscal year, including unexpended free cash from the previous year, actual receipts in excess of revenue estimates shown on the tax recapitulation sheet, and unspent amounts in budget line items. Unpaid property taxes and certain deficits reduce the amount that can be certified as free cash. The calculation of free cash is based on the balance sheet as of June 30th, which is submitted by the community's auditor, accountant, or comptroller. And it's important, free cash is not available for appropriation until certified by the Director of Accounts, or Mr. Jerry Perry. So with the bullet points here, this is part of the idea. At the next town meeting, following the Director of Accounts certification of free cash, the town should vote to transfer funds from free cash to the stabilization fund. If free cash is certified at $200,000 or greater, the town will endeavor to transfer a minimum of $100,000 to the stabilization fund. If free cash is certified at less than $200,000, then the town will attempt to transfer a minimum 50% of certified free cash to the stabilization fund. The remaining free cash should be used to fully fund the purchase of capital items. One of the things people say, we don't want to pay for the first year of a lease through the free cash, because then the next year we have to appropriate that through the budget. So whatever you're buying through free cash, you'd really like to purchase outright. The only caveat being that the town may wish to let a certain amount of free cash roll over to establish a base for the ensuing fiscal year. So that way you're never short with negative free cash, if you will. This is sort of the main points on here. And again, the whole reason for this is we no longer have it where we can really fund the stabilization fund out of our operating budget. And this is a good fiscal policy, even a conservative one, if you will. Thank you.
Okay, Selectman Tropiano?
You know, let me put this up a little closer here. It's always been a problem for me using one-time money, which free cash technically is, to fund anything but one-time expenses. And anybody who does that is just playing with fire anyway, because, you know, it's just going to roll and double itself and, you know, cause kind of problems. So when I was on the Finance Committee, was always in favor of, and we pretty much did, not use free cash for anything but one-time expenses. Yeah. And this is pretty much in keeping with that policy, so that it works for me fine. I'm not so sure you can commit the amount of money saying, well, we're going to transfer 50% to stabilization every time, because that doesn't work, because it depends on what's going on for the year. There are times when you'll have some old bills that need to be paid and things of that nature that you're going to have to deal with, and that's the perfect use. Snow and ice is also one of the perfect uses for free cash, because it hopefully doesn't reoccur the next year. You know, you've deficit spent, and then you can, of course, pay it with that money. You can pick it up on the recap, which basically takes it from free cash anyway, if you so choose. But it's still the same thing. And I think that it's a good policy to let people understand that free cash is for one-time expenses and one time only.
Thank you.
Selectman Slavin?
I have no issue with this at all. This is something that we should have done a while ago. We've had guidelines, and unfortunately our situation financially has kind of made it easy just kind of to ignore what we should be doing previously. The way it's written right now, it says we'll attempt to transfer a minimum of 50%. That is gray enough so that if the situation doesn't allow for it, we can work around that. But I think it's good to have something in place that says we're going to try and make this attempt. Thank you.
Well, beyond that, ultimately, town meeting is the decider of this, not us. It says the town will endeavor to transfer. And when you say the town, in this instance, it means the town meeting, which is not us. It's not Mr. Sullivan. It's not even the FinCom. So ultimately, it's up to them to make that decision. I do know from conversations with I want to make sure I have the title right, the acting vice chair of the FinCom, perhaps is the way to put it, that they were hopeful to see a policy like this put in place. And to hear Selectman Tropiano talk about his past experience on the FinCom, where this, if it wasn't a directly written policy, was the policy they tried to follow to some extent, is heartening to hear as well.
Yeah, the only reason why it wasn't a policy is because the selectmen have no right to tie town meeting's hands. Town meeting's the only one who can spend money. They're the only ones who can appropriate money. They're the only one who can do any of this. So we can have a policy all we want, but town meeting, of course, is the ultimate authority. However, us having a policy and setting that wheel in motion to the finance committee and to everybody else probably makes it a lot more viable, and probably would have been a good idea even back then.
Okay. Anything else?
I think we should, schedule in within a few weeks to put something together. I don't have the exact number, but it's in our policy book, 88 whatever that. 1988 was a big year with a lot of policies that were put in place that has this in there. And we'll just put something together and then give it to the town administrator to file it. That's good
Why
with
don't we
everybody.
why don't we wait until we have
Everybody's back.
and then
2 weeks afterwards.
in the meantime, perhaps Mr. Sullivan, you could work on a draft formal policy for us.
I will. In the meantime, I'll forward this, email it to the other members of the board.
Yes, that would be helpful.
June 18th, June 25th, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Then the other item I have is from Mr. Pina, the CETA director, and it's requesting a signature from the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, and it's for a grant application of non-point source pollution grant program. In other words, that is for the stormwater remediation program for down on the Main Street, and they'd be seeking approximately a $400,000 grant.
I move favorable action and authorize the chairman to sign the.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Selectman Tropiano and seconded by Selectman Slavin. Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
3-0-0.
Thank you. And that is
That's
the
it?
short report.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda.
Our reports from the boards.
I'm okay. Nothing this week, please.
I'm okay today.
You're okay today?
Today's okay.
You're okay.
Today. Oh, okay. I'm
That's
okay.
good
You're
news.
okay. Well, that's good. I just wanted to mention that
good news.
tomorrow, Selectman and Slavin, we had previously met with the District 5 of Mass DOT personnel to discuss the Cranberry Highway Improvement Project that the state is looking to do. We're going to be meeting tomorrow with them again to go over their latest iteration of their plan. And I don't know if I said this the last time we reported to the board. That was actually before the election. But anyway, the state has agreed to retain control of this stretch of Cranberry Highway. So the initial plan was to turn it over to the town. I think they were looking to give us a dump truck or something in mitigation. I don't know if they were going to give us a driver to drive it. That was the only problem. So this way, they remain responsible for plowing it. They remain responsible for maintaining it. So the town doesn't accrue any additional direct costs in association with the highway, which is an important piece. The other thing is, when we met with them in February, I indicated that I thought that the stretch between the lights at Walmart and Main Ave to have no turnarounds in that area was too far. It was going to be too negative an impact on our businesses if people had to drive a mile out of their way and then another 3/4 of a mile back, for example, to get to the Burger King, just for example. It didn't make sense to do that. They have added a 5th turnaround in that area. So that would make it a lot easier for our businesses. And in connection with some recent tragedies that have occurred there, the state, of course, is eager to get moving on this. And so tomorrow, Selectman and Slavin and I will be meeting again with the folks from the state to talk about this further. We will be planning to report back to the board next week. And then from there, we're probably going to need to schedule a public input meeting, a workshop-style event with the Board of Selectmen, the Mass DOT folks, and the public at large and the business owners.
You know, we've been all through this before, and we've had the impact meetings, and the takings never got done, and it's gone round and round and round. And we had literally 4 people killed in front of of McDonald's in 1 week, a few years back. 4 people in 1 week. And the road is really dangerous. It really needs to be done. And I'm not so sure that we've been on them enough to really get this thing taken care of.
No, it's actually, this is our responsibility this time. They've been pushing us.
Well, if it's our responsibility, then we've got to do whatever it is, because there's just too much going on out there. There's too many people. Again, last week we had a fatality. It's just, and in the same location, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, that's one of the bloodiest. We've had them at the lights at Jefferson Shores because there's no left turn lane. We've had them at other lights because there was no left turn lanes. When they came in, at least when they put the lights in at the plaza and stuff, when Home Depot came in, they put turn lanes in. That made it a little safer. But we really need to be, whatever it takes. I mean, if anything I can do, whatever it takes, we've got to get this done. We just can't let this keep going on and keep hearing all the time that there's been a fatality out there.
I agree.
So we will be moving forward with that. Anything else? If we're all set, may we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 3-0-0. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.